our own agency, the majority of our team have been with us for 3 years or longer. When we place remote professionals in our clients' businesses, we have a retention of 97% over 30 months. What that means is that 97% of our clients are still working with the same remote professional 30 months after they started working with them. So the question is, well, how is this retention so good? Because anyone that's had a team member ever work in their agency for longer than 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months will know that the real value in bringing someone in, remote or not, is the compounding value, right? That return on investment grows over time as that person becomes more integrated, more embedded, more independent within the business. So where does this go wrong and where does it go right is the question. Well, setting your remote professional up for success is the absolute key. So for us, it's the onboarding that makes the real difference. And just to give a little bit of context around this, when we talk to clients about hiring someone remotely, they often have concerns around hiring remotely, right? If someone's not in the office sat next to me, how can I train them? How can I see what they're doing? How will they be able to see what we're doing? How will they get involved in the culture? I just said a lot of things really fast at the same time. But instead of having concerns about hiring a remote professional and that not working, actually the number one question when anyone hires a remote professional should be, what do I need to do to set them up for success, to set them up well during this 30-day onboarding period? And then what will my metric be? Like, how will I know that I set them up for success? So in 30 days, what's the indicator going to be that tells me that I did a great onboarding with them? And normally we would suggest, look at the tasks. So what's going to be taken off your plate as the founder 30 days after onboarding, a successful onboarding? That's normally a really good indication as to whether or not you've onboarded well. So why is the first 30 days always so important? This is when you get to embed your remote professional, right? So this 30 days is going to set the expectations. It's going to set the pace. It's going to set the standards for them to then continue to grow. So what we're always talking about when we're onboarding for our clients is, what are the key things that you want them to take ownership of? What's the outcome of the role? And then what's the metric, like I just talked about, of success for you at the end of 30 days? It's super important because if you think about it, we then share that with the remote professional. As usual, I'm jumping around a little bit here, but we then share that with the remote professional. We go, okay, so in 30 days, we want you to have taken ownership of all underperforming accounts. We want you to have taken ownership of all client communications and reporting. And we want you to have taken ownership of any new client accounts that come on and creating the strategy around their PPC campaign or whatever it might be, right? So let's say we're hiring a PPC specialist. The outcome of that role, which we make clear on onboarding, is we want you to take full ownership of the PPC department of marketing agency X. And we want you to drive traffic to generate revenue for our clients. So we're really specific about what it is. We then set those 30-day goals as part of your onboarding. We then share that with remote professional. And then when they hit it, they now go, this is amazing. I've achieved these things in my first 30 days. Their confidence up because we were super transparent at the start of what it was that they were going to be doing. So it's really, really important to make sure that in that first 30 days, in the first week, we're very clear to the remote professional what we want them to do, the 3 wins that we expect them to achieve or 3 outcomes we want them to take ownership of. Things like communication cadence, things like end of day reporting, how frequently we want to speak to them, because then at the end of that 30 days, they go, this is awesome. I've hit these wins. I've made an impact on the company. You can see clearly what they've done as well. There's no gray area. Is this working? Is this not working? You've had tasks taken off your plate. They've achieved some wins. Already now you're set up for a success. You carry that momentum forward, right? And you continue that going. So what's the framework that we use within that 30 days? It's broken into a 4-stage framework. Very simple. First stage, visibility. So for week 1, remote professional just has visibility on everything to do with their function within the business. So they observe any phone calls, they observe anyone working in the accounts that they're going to be working in. So they start to analyze as well. So it's not just, oh, they sit back and watch. They start to analyze what's the current systems, current processes that's around their role. And they start taking notes and they start observing whether or not they're going to implement any changes into this and how it's being done, if they can see improvements. Week 2 is guided execution. So at this point, we still want them to be supported, but we also want them to start. So it's guided execution. We also want them to start taking some ownership of some things at this point. So they're doing the work, they're in the do, but they're still checking and getting sign off from their from the founder, from you. Then week 3, we want to make sure that's focused around ownership and contribution. So at this point, we want them to be bringing suggestions. So from everything that they've observed in week 1, started to do in week 2, we then want them to have compiled suggestions of how they can contribute, how they can add value, how they're going to do things a little bit differently, and start taking ownership of the functions that we talked about, so that by week 4, they're fully independent within that role. The other thing that I want to do when I'm onboarding is I want to set up for success as far as that communication is concerned, especially with a remote professional. If ever you've had someone working from home or remotely, whether or not they were based in a different country or even in the country that you're in or like locally, one of the biggest frustrations is, oh, we weren't too sure what they were doing. So I want to make sure that from the very start that's set up so you do know exactly what they were doing. We don't want to micromanage a remote professional. If you're micromanaging a remote professional, you're taking away their autonomy. So you're saying, oh, I want them to take ownership and be autonomous, but every 5 minutes I also want to know what they're doing, or I want to put a time tracker on or a screen recorder. They're going to feel micromanaged. You're not going to be able to retain the best people if you do that. So instead, it's just about having that visibility on what they're doing. So the cadence of communication that we always set up when we're involved is, after the onboarding call we have with the client, we then do that onboarding call with the remote professional so that they're super clear on the goals in the first 30 days. We then ensure that they start a communication cadence where at the end of every day on Slack, they just drop a quick report of what it is that they were doing today, what their plans are for tomorrow. We recommend that they put Fathom in every call. And then at the end of the Fathom call, they run that through AI and they just break out the notes and any projects that came from that. And then they can upload that onto their project management system. So again, that's a 3-step system where they record the call in Fathom. They then upload the call into Chat or Claude or whatever it is that you use. They prompt that AI to pull out the key points from the call, any deadlines, they help prioritize it. Then they can put that into project management software, whether it's Trello, Asana, ClickUp, it doesn't matter. They then share that with their client to say, is this the right, is this what you understood from the call? So there's no communication issue there. It's very clear what it is that they need to be doing. They set up weekly calls with the founder. So sometimes in the first couple of weeks, you might want to speak twice a week. Really, we want to try and keep it down to once a week. Otherwise, you end up with a lot of unnecessary going back and forth. Really, the system for communication should be project management tools, Slack communication, and once a week call instead. And like I said as well, we're super clear on what that success looks like, super clear on what that 30-day success looks like, and we refer to it at each time as well. So what does good look like at the end of this 30 days? Well, if you've onboarded your remote professional properly, they will be super proactive. They'll be taking ownership. They will have hit that 30-day success metric. They'll be implementing the improvements that they've seen need to be implemented without needing to be directed or prompted by you. And most importantly, you as the founder will notice, oh, I've started to get some time back, whether it means that you're out of the day-to-day, whether it means that you're not doing so many tasks, whatever it might be, you at the end of that 30 days, it should not take 3 months to onboard someone. It should take 30 days. You should expect to be able to see a direct impact on you and your time 30 days into onboarding someone successfully. If an onboarding fails, often it's not because it was the wrong person that was brought in. It's because it wasn't set up right. That's why when we do the onboarding with our clients, we do it ourselves to ensure that it is set up right. But when we've seen it fail in the past, it's because that onboarding wasn't set up right. It's super important as well. If you're going to hire someone and bring someone in, a remote professional, contractually, it's different to hiring an employee. So there is the flexibility there. But if you go into it with that mindset, you're setting yourself up for failure again. So it's super important when onboarding a remote professional, you're setting yourself up mentally for success by thinking, this isn't a trial. I'm not going to test it, see if it works. I'm going to set them up properly and give them the right foundations in this 30 days for that relationship to continue to grow afterwards. Because as I mentioned at the start of the video, The real value in bringing the right team in, giving them the right level of responsibility, giving them the right ownership, is the compounding value that that person brings in month on month, year on year, the longer that they're embedded, integrated, and driving your vision through the actions that they take in your business. So this 30 days, I can't emphasize enough, is critical to set your remote professionals up for success.